Are you guys ready to get your dose of Spider-Man? Well, we got a lot of Spider-Man to talk about. We got 3 books to discuss this week. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Yes, this week's Spider-Man Weekly is packed. We didn't have any books last week, and this week we got 3. We got the Spider-Man issue 2 featuring the End of Spider-Verse Part 2. We have the Amazing Spider-Man issue 13, and then we have the Spider-Man The Lost Hunt issue 1. It's packed. Which one was my favorite? Which one was my least favorite? Well, we're going to get into that right now. So, coming in at number 3, my least favorite Spider-Man book was, can you guess it? 3, 2, 1, was Spider-Man issue 2, written by Dan Slott, artwork by Mark Bagley. This is the End of Spider-Verse Part 2. I have come to terms that I am over the Spider-Verse stuff. And I realized that when Dan Slott last wrote Spider-Verse, okay? And in this issue, the problem with it is that there are way too many characters on the page, and there's too much standing around and talking. And I think I said the exact same thing when Dan Slott wrote the original Spider-Verse. You have all these spider characters, and all they do is jibber jabber the entire time, and nothing actually happens in the comic book. This comic book needs to get through this Spider-Verse bullshit so we can get to maybe some different stories, something different that maybe Dan Slott has to offer. The artwork in this book is great. Mark Bagley does a phenomenal job. But once again, we get all this freaking word vomit from Dan Slott, and it definitely covers up the artwork. And what makes it worse is that they're in this different Earth. It's Earth 616 Beta. It's like a alternate Earth of this version where they can hide away from the main wasp enemy, Shathra, I think her name is, right? And that's where you see all these spider characters go. They all meet with each other. So not only do you have Miles and Silk and Spider-Man Noir and all the other characters fighting each other, well, then you get introduced to all the newest spider characters. So you got Aranya, you got Spider-Man UK, you wind up getting Spider UK, and then you wind up getting the Felicia Hardy Spider, and you wind up getting the Kraven the Hunter Spider, and you're just like, oh my god, there's so many of them, and all they do is just jibber jabber on who they are, where they came from. And if you already read the Age of Spider-Verse stuff, you don't get anything out of this comic book. There's nothing that transpires out of it. You get to see a little story of Moreland, of what happened to him and how he lost all his people, and it was just god awful. I hated this comic book so much, and I was just like, nothing happened. Yes, we have to stop Shathra, right? We know that. I think we pretty much knew that in the Edge of Spider-Verse stuff. And she has possession of all the spiders, basically. And and that's it. And she's going to do battle against them. This is a disappointing comic book. I was bored to death reading this book, and that is the problem when it comes to Dan Slott writing these Spider-Verse books. There's too many characters on the page. No one can breathe. So don't recommend this one right now. We'll see what happens afterwards, right? All right. So coming in, this is a tough decision for me. I feel like these 2 books are equal, and they're different in so many ways, right? So I'm going to go at number 2. I think I'm going to go with Spider-Man The Lost Hunt. This is a pretty good comic book. I like what they were going for here. DeMatteis is the original writer of The Last Hunt, right? As we got to see Kraven the Hunter go crazy, trying to kill Spider-Man, commit suicide. This is the follow-up to that. And basically what's going to happen is you're going to learn the origin of Kraven the Hunter, but we get introduced or reintroduced to a character that we have not seen before. He's another hunter. His name is Kreger. He was around in the days of Ben Reilly, Scarlet Spider, when he took over for Spider-Man when Spider-Man went away. And that's when this series takes place. That's when this book takes place, when Spider-Man is powerless and Ben Reilly is in charge. So you wind up getting to see Peter Parker and MJ. They move to Portland to try to start their life again, okay? And we get to see real brief glimpses of Kraven the Hunter as he resurrects from the grave, and that's basically it. But the thing that I liked about this book was I really enjoyed Peter on how he's going through some type of like PTSD. He has no powers. He's trying to start new in a different town or city, but he has this anxiety issues about losing his powers, having not to do battle against villains anymore. He tries to go on rooftops and hops them when he doesn't have the powers. And Mary Jane is pregnant in this book, and she's trying to help Peter, but Peter pushes her away. And it's a very emotionally driven book. We can see that Peter is struggling through the entire issue, and it gets worse. But it has to do with the character Gregor, who is like a Kraven the Hunter. He's like Kraven the Hunter's mentor or something like that. He has a cheetah by his side, and he's creating all these like hallucinogenic things, and kind of like a similar vibe or tone that Peter experienced when you were reading The Last Hunt. So it had that vibe to it. By the time you wind up getting to the end of it, Gregor's whole job here was to break the mind of Peter Parker, right? And then he's going to break the body, and then he's going to kill his prey. And that's basically what he's doing here. He's just destroying his mind, and he's obviously destroying the relationship between MJ and Peter in here as well. So, very interesting issue. My one downfall, I think if this book had a top tier artist on it, I think this probably would have beat out Amazing Spider-Man for me, because you'll say, well, John Romita Jr. ain't no top tier artist anymore. It's true, but that Amazing Spider-Man book has a distinctive feel for me for some reason. This doesn't have any feel. This was the first issue of this book, and if they had a similar artist to the original Last Hunt, where it was really dark and really gloomy and whatnot and gritty, I probably would have really enjoyed it more. But here it just felt like there was oversaturation of inks. Characters' facial expressions looked off. It didn't seem like a top tier comic for me when it came to the art, and that's where it missed the boat there. But I love where they were trying to go with this, and I felt like there's a lot of things that if you did not read in the past, you gotta kind of really read that to understand what is going on here. However, if you do read the very last page, the like letters page, it explains to you kind of the time period, who Gregor is, where he appeared and stuff, so that does help. This was a good book. However, I still liked Amazing Spider-Man issue 13 more. I think it's because we're in a current story arc. I love the Hobgoblin. And yes, even though John Romita Jr.'s artwork is not the best for me, and yes, Spider-Man wears this crazy suit, there's something about it that just has a familiar tone to me. I guess it just goes back to that Straczynski run when John Romita did the artwork. And, eventually when an artist is on a book for quite a while, you do get used to it, right? And I think the storytelling here is kind of fun, and it leads up to the dark web. And so here we get to see the two hobgoblins in this issue do battle against Spider-Man. And I loved seeing that battle between them, and we get to see him try to use all his new gadgets and tricks and stuff like that, and they fail against the two hobgoblins in this issue, and you wind up getting to see him resort back to his webs, which I really enjoyed, because we have not seen the webs in quite a while, and he winds up taking out the hobgoblins here. But I'm telling you, freaking Peter Parker gets some serious damage done to himself. He gets his back sliced, he gets his freaking head basically blown up. I mean, it's just so intriguing. In the meantime, we get to see Norman Osborn wind up taking matters in his own hands, and for the first time you get to see the Gold Goblin make his appearance in this book and helps out Peter. He feels like there's no other choice. There was no one there to help him, and he felt like he needed to get onto that glider, and he wound up taking out, I think it was Ned Leeds, and we get to see him have some of those anger issues, and Peter had to reel him back a little bit, right? So very, very interesting book on how this is leading into the dark web. But what I liked most about this book of all is the person that's behind this entire thing wasn't just Roderick Kingsley, but it was also the Queen Goblin herself, who wound up getting Roderick on the glider, who Roderick wound up getting Ned Leeds back on the glider. So she's the one that's been behind the whole thing. And I love how she made her appearance back in this book. I'm digging this story, man. I think this is number one just because it's what's going on now in Amazing Spider-Man and it's leading up to a really good event. And I think this has been a very well told story when it's not interrupted with, you know, obviously the X-Men Gala and Judgment Day and stuff like that. Good stuff here, man. So that's what gets number one for me. So there you guys have it. There is Spider-Man Weekly. We talked about Spider-Man issue 2, which definitely is not a recommend. Spider-Man The Lost Hunt, which is a recommend. I just wish there was a little bit more better artwork on it. And of course, the one that reigns supreme is the original Amazing Spider-Man issue 13, Legacy 907. Great Hobgoblin story there, guys. So I want to know in the comments below, what did you guys think of these 3 books? So there you guys have it. So if you love my content, I'll leave you more content right here. In fact, this is my video series called After the Pull, where I take 5 of my highly anticipated comics and see if they live up to the hype. So guys, always remember, keep buying, keep collecting, but always read those comics. Guys, have a great weekend. I'll see you real soon. Take care. Bye.